We are the Church of the Larger Fellowship, a Unitarian Universalist congregation with no geographical boundaries. We believe in cultivating curiosity and transformation that is rooted in profound love. The COVID-19 pandemic has irrevocably shaped how connections are formed in congregations across the United States and the world. The Church of the Larger Fellowship is committed to being a resource within Unitarian Universalism and beyond. From worship to covenant groups, from classes to pastoral care, and from our monthly magazine Quest to our online community hub and our letter writing ministry, we have found ways to build connection and community even through the screen. We have been a model for ministry on the margins, providing services for isolated Unitarian Universalists, becoming a spiritual lifeline for our members in prison. The CLF supports the ministries of those who hold target identities: Blue, Black Lives of Unitarian Universalism; Trust, Transgender Religious UU Professionals Together; and Drum, Diverse Revolutionary Unitarian Universalist Multicultural Ministries, just to name a few. We know better than anyone how deep and meaningful connections can be formed, even from a distance. Unitarian Universalists have faced many challenges in these times, and we continue to persevere and fight for justice and equity for all people, especially during moments of crisis. We are proud to be a leader in this faith movement, and we invite you to get involved in our ministry. We strive to be a place where anyone from anywhere can find spiritual refuge anytime they need it. Welcome to the Church of the Larger Fellowship. We are so excited to bring you an all-new episode of The View. The View is a weekly Unitarian Universalist talk show discussing important faith-based topics from an anti-racist, anti-oppressive, and multicultural perspective. Every Thursday for the past 7 years, we have welcomed guests from every corner of the world. Our guests are writers, scholars, activists, and religious thought leaders who are shaping Unitarian Universalism and society for the 21st century and beyond. I hope today's show inspires you. Hope it builds your faith. Hope it gives you perspective to see the power of Unitarian Universalism at work in your life. Enjoy the message.
Good morning and hello from any time zone you're in. I'm in Seattle, Washington. I'm Aisha Hauser. My pronouns are she and her. Welcome to Voices of Unitarian Universalism. You can tell the kind of morning I'm having already. My order of welcome was all over the place. We have a really interesting show today. We're going to talk about what it means to be inclusive and use inclusive imagery when we are a pluralist faith without a creed. So we are very much looking forward to our special guest today. But before I introduce her, I will send this over to my co-host. So Chris, how are you doing?
Hi, everyone. I'm Christina Rivera, she, her pronouns, and I'm coming to you from beautiful Central Virginia, where the weather outside is bright and crisp and just heading into my favorite time here in Virginia, the fall. Not necessarily the fall of an election season, but you know, we got to take what we can get, and so I'm grateful for the crisp autumn weather outside my window. DC, how you doing?
Hi, everybody. I am DC Fortune. I am coming to you from the heart of the Susquehanna River Valley in central Pennsylvania, ancestral home of the Susquehannock people. I forgot, my pronouns are he, him. I don't think do we do, if we're doing physical descriptions, I am a balding, fat white guy with glasses and a red polo shirt. and life here is good minus the sinuses, like because we had our first frost last night, so now all of the allergens have shifted, right? Like the summer ones are gone and the fall ones are now on shift. Oh man. But yeah, no, it's a good day, it's beautiful, and yeah, it's not bad. Michael, how you doing? Rescue me from blabbing, please.
I'm doing just fine, thank you, DC. Michael Tino here, joining you from Peekskill, New York, in the Hudson Valley of New York, the land of the Kitchewan, Wappinger, and Munsee Lenape peoples. It is a beautiful, bright fall day here, and I'm hoping that we're post fall allergy season here. I am currently playing what I like to refer to as New England Chicken, which is to see how long I can go into the fall without turning the heat on in my house. Yeah. So I know I don't live in New England, but it is a time honored New England tradition to see who can last the longest in their freezing cold house, before they give in and turn on the heat. So the heat is set at 64, and it hasn't kicked on yet because the house is 65 degrees. And that's fine for me. Like, it's beautiful to sleep in, and no air conditioning, no fans necessary to sleep in a 65 degree bedroom, but it does make it fun. So we'll see when the heat kicks in.
So do we want to do physical descriptions? I appreciate DC that I always forget and I deeply apologize. So I will kick it off. I'm Asian, middle-aged, brown woman with mocha skin and black hair with salt and pepper gray throughout. And I'm wearing a keffiyeh and a long sleeve gray shirt. So Michael.
I'm Christina, and I am a 50-something-year-old woman with light tan skin. I'm wearing glasses today, and I've got about, I guess it's shoulder length now, hair that is salt and pepper gray. Today it's kind of straight-ish and swooping from left to right or right to left, depending on which side of the screen you're on. And I'm wearing a lavender cardigan. Yes, and my service dog Coco is here with me as well. She's a Cavapoo, and she's about 8 months old. She's brown, and she is feeling her beans this morning. So you may hear people oohing and awing over her at some point.
And this is Michael. I am a middle-aged, fat, white, dudeish like person, who would have salt and pepper hair if there were any left on my head, and there's really not. And I am wearing a purple hoodie sweatshirt in my 65 degree house. So sitting in front of a bookcase and a pig. And that brings us to our guest, right? And I will. Sure.
Yes, I want to. Reverend Cheryl M. Walker, past president of the Unitarian Universalist Ministers Association, co-chair of the Article 2 Commission, and Reverend Cheryl M. Walker has served several congregations in different states. And I am so excited to have you here today, Cheryl, because I think it's going to be a deeply rich conversation, not only about Jetpig. We titled the show is Jetpig Haram. Also, I think what it means to be a pluralist faith and what does inclusivity mean. So I'd love for you to introduce yourself, image description, and where you are joining us from. Welcome, Cheryl.
Good morning, everyone. I am, as Isha said, Cheryl M. Walker. I use pronouns Cheryl, she, and they, in that order, my preference. I am here in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, on the ancestral lands of the Lenape peoples. And I'm wearing a white shirt, turtleneck, with a purple sweater because it's cold here. And that means to me it's below 70. It's cold.
It I love that. Our diversity and how we experience weather is always fascinating. So one of the things before we totally dive in, how Jetpig even came to be, that'll be the kickoff of today's conversation about imagery and what we use as metaphors. So you were co-chair of the article. You're still co-chair.
Article 2 commission is
still
done because we
done.
passed
Okay.
the revised article.
Yay!
Support
Celebration.
I also very much want to thank the View for your support in giving us an audience from time to time. So that was very
we appreciate the work that you all put in over years.
4 years of my life I will never get back.
Well, y'all did a great job.
Yes. Well, we are excited to thank you for all the work. Yes. So Jetpig, justice, equity, transformation. Help me out, folks.
Pluralism, interdependence, generosity.
And generosity. So those are all the values that encompass Article 2. And a Loretta member, Liberal Religious Educators Association.
With love at the center. With love at the center.
With love at the center.
Love is the core value.
Is the core. So that's why Jetpig has a heart here. So came up with this kind of imagery to encapsulate the core values of Article 2. So thank you for coming on and let's dive in. I'd love to hear your perspective on is Jetpig haram?
No. Jetpig.
Cheryl's like, where to begin?
Cheryl,
full disclosure, Cheryl, I was with you. When Jetpig first came out, I was like, oh, dear Lord, what have we done?
What have you done?
Yeah, I was with you. And I now, too, am on the Jetpig bandwagon. So,
but I have an alternative that we will get to.
Okay.
I will tell you why the alternative is even better.
Okay.
So the very first problem I had with Jetpig, of course, is that there was no L.
Oh.
Well, there is Jetpiglet or
no, then that doesn't work because then now I have too many letters and that doesn't work.
Ours is Joseph L. Jetpig.
Right.
I don't care what you've named it. Jetpig itself did not have an L.
Okay.
Love is at the center, and then there is no love. And I'm like, oh my God, how did we miss that?
And so, Cheryl, can you settle this for once and for all? People ask me all the time.
There are 7
we have
values.
6 values or
there
7.
There are 7 values.
And that's what I tell them,
right.
Because love is a value.
Love is our primary value.
Okay, so you've heard the definitive answer from the co-chair of the Article 2 Study Commission.
Yeah, please don't.
There are 7 values, and love is one of them.
7 values. Got it.
Love is at the center. But on a personal, I was born and raised as a Muslim. I keep a halal home. A pig can never come in my house. When I saw Jetpig, it was like you personally stabbed me in the heart. That is very much a part of who I am. And Aisha, you've known me for a long time, and you know that is really important to me.
Yes, I sure do.
That's right. You know, years ago, when my parents and I fought about whether I was going to the mosque ever again, I made a promise. I would never eat pig. I would never eat pig. Because in the African American community in particular, addition to how we dressed, but it was known that Muslims do not eat pork. They do not have pork. So it was not only that, but it was personal. But as I thought about a pig, in this time of heightened Islamophobia and anti-Semitism, for us to be so unaware of what that image may send to the rest of the world, how is that pluralistic? How is that pluralistic? A friend of mine, and I'm going to go on for a little bit because you gave me a microphone and I can. You should go back and do that. Well, y'all do that. A friend of mine was in Germany for a few months. And she's a Lutheran. And so she would go to different old Lutheran churches. She was appalled by so many of them having the imagery of a Jew suckling a pig.
What?
Yeah, in their churches.
Ooh.
What?
And they're still there. And when asked, why do you keep it? They say, as a reminder of what we had done and who we had been, so we never be that again. If we erase everything, we can pretend it didn't happen. But we wanted to show how deep it went. And then I come and I see that we have decided, okay. So I said, okay, the pig has to go. Pig has to go. This. But you can't just take something away and not have a replacement.
Yeah.
So I got so excited about this.
We are too.
It's called a jiggle pet. J-I-G.
What?
A jiggle pet. Jigglep.
Okay.
Like Jigglypuff from the Pokemon?
No, not well, if you want to think of it that way, but no. It's not like anything.
Not like anything. Okay.
Say the letters again.
Anything. They don't exist.
Can you spell it for me one more time? Spell it for me one more time.
J-I-G-L.
Uh-huh.
Pet. P-E-T.
Okay.
Mm.
A jiggle pet. What does a jiggle pet look like?
And so we could invite people to draw their own jiggle pets,
Thank you.
and they can all be different.
Thank you. Isn't that at the heart of Unitarian Universalism?
I
We
mean,
would draw jiggle pets and they would look different. And there isn't this one iteration. There is this, first of all, we have this wonderful diagram already. We don't need another thing. But every jiggle pet could be different. And by the way, L is there, love at the center. Yeah, that's that. And I was like, imagine if we have kids saying, and we're talking to our kids and we're saying, talk about a jiggle pet. And they go, well, what's a jiggle pet? I don't know. What do you think a jiggle pet would look like? What about Josephine the jiggle pet? Isaac the jiggle pet. We can have stories about jiggle pets, and each jiggle pet in a story would be different. And each one might, so I'm looking at you, Christine. Oh, Chris, you need to be writing me some stories. A jiggle pet. Jigglpet. Jiggle pet.
So I'm going to be.
And you know what else I like about it?
What?
That's right, jiggle pets don't exist. But neither does a world where we live those values every day, everywhere. They are what we are dreaming that we shall be as a faith, what we shall be as a people, what we shall be as a world, affirming all of these values. But do we do them now? No. We know we don't. Let's be real. So we've imagined ourselves. Let's imagine. Let's keep imagining. Isn't that cool? I mean, we can just imagine tomorrow by imagining a jiggle pet that doesn't exist that we make come into the world. So that's my speech.
So I want to, if I may, Cheryl, I also, like you, I grew up Muslim. My mother was, same thing. Like my mother's never had pork. I did not have pork growing up. I did definitely like have a reaction to Jetpig, maybe not quite as strong, but here's what I'm going to be completely honest. When I talked about it with a couple of other caucus members from the Southwest Asian and North African group, we were, here was my response. Let's give the UUs Jetpig, but please take on, be courageous about naming genocide. Be courageous about not centering the feelings of certain people, but center life. And so, as far as I'm concerned, take the fucking pig. But how about you stand up for Palestinians, or not? I'm using ableist language, but affirm the lives of Arabs and Lebanese and now Syrians. And it feels like this war keeps getting worse and worse and worse. And so, to me, it's like, okay, well, and I hear you, and I love the idea of jiggle pet. I hear you. What I'm wanting to communicate is, I've been so deeply disappointed doesn't even cover it, how lacking in courage and moral clarity. God bless Ta-Nehisi Coates, who has been very clear on his tour for his book, The Message, please get it, saying there is nothing anyone can tell me, nothing. It's just been a lesson for all of us in sacred moral clarity. He said, there's nothing you could tell me that will make what's happening in Israel to the Palestinians, the apartheid, okay. There's nothing you're going to tell me that's going to make the genocide okay. Nothing. And so I feel like we try to we become moral cowards. I'm going to say it when we center, like we try to placate too many people, and then we don't say, hey, this is wrong. So by the time Jetpig came around, I said, I was kind of like, wow, that's interesting. That's a choice. And then I'm like, okay, I kind of just went with it, right? And I did hear that some folks were like, hey, this is anti-Muslim or anti-Semitic. I hear you. And I said, well, how about we take a very strong stand against genocide? How about that? That's truly where I've landed. So that was my thinking.
Okay, and I think both are true.
Yeah.
I don't think one.
Okay.
I think, in fact, if I tell you that your pig insults me as a Muslim, and you continue to use it, and then you want to talk about genocide, I don't believe you. I don't trust you. I don't think, if I tell you that something is really harming me right now, and you're thinking, oh, okay, who said a jiggle pet was an animal? I saw there was a little comment. Who said a jiggle pet is an animal? Pet rocks. So, right. Anyway, Aisha, I don't think that I think in some ways they are actually interrelated, because we want the easy way. Jetpig was cute, and nobody spent a moment thinking about what's the implication of a pig. No one thought, and we just went.
I have to push back on that a little bit, Cheryl, because there was a conversation specifically in religious educator spaces when Jetpig became an acronym. And that's where, it started. It started as we have new values, and what learning tool can we use to be able to remember them? We've spent, years and years and years on teaching methods around the 7 principles, and then the 8th principles, using different do re mi. We use the rainbow. And so the acronym of Jetpig came from a place of wanting to figure out an easy way, but people out there might not know who are listening.
An easy way to remember, and I get that.
Right. So let me finish. And so the conversation that launched from that moment was in conversation with people from SWANA, saying, hey, is this problematic in a Unitarian Universalist space where we are trying to be pluralistic? I mean, that's the P. And what are the feelings around that? And the feedback that we got was that this was, I want to accurately describe the feedback that I saw, because things take root and different people have different experiences of how things take root. So the feedback that I was seeing was that this was not problematic in the way in which it was being used within this context. And I was happy that there was enough of recognition that this could be problematic to have that conversation. Now, I definitely hear from you that this is very deeply felt and very deeply held. And I definitely want to respond, and I love Jigglypet or Jigglepet. But I need to push back on the idea that there was absolutely that people were.
That was hyperbole. That was most definitely hyperbolic on my point.
I wonder if this is pointing us at a cultural difference between Southwest Asian and North African Muslims and Black American Muslim communities that I use the we Unitarian Universalists did not take into account or understand. Because Cheryl, I'm trying to understand, like, you were very plain with us about how this felt to you, right? And that your feelings come from having grown up in a Black Muslim home. And so I'm just wondering if there's a cultural difference that.
Oh, absolutely, there are cultural differences, and we all know it. I mean, we've talked about it in the past.
Well, I'm just wondering if this is one of them.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. There are so many. There are different. If you go to any city that has a mosque, or if you go to any city, you will find 2 mosques often. One for African Americans and one for Asian, African immigrant communities that may have been here for a while, but may not be. But they don't mix.
Right.
They often do not mix. That's not unusual in that, if you look at Catholics, you'll see a Catholic church, you'll see predominantly Irish Catholic Church, predominantly Asian Catholic Church, Spanish. So, and the language becomes different between the two because, we're probably going to do everything in English. More so than, say, someone from other countries may do it in their native tongues. Everybody will pray in Arabic. That's the one thing. We'll right now,
Cheryl,
even if we don't know what we're actually saying. Um,
I ask you a question about like that I've also exactly about the pig, but just in general, because coming from Muslim backgrounds and then working for churches and being a reverend, right? So that's also not part of our lexicon growing up Muslim. And I'm curious how you reconcile that the church. I mean, we're leads of the church of the larger fellowship, so I'm curious about that.
For a long time, I never told people I didn't go to the church. I went to the CMP, Congregations Meeting Place. And then I said, let me look at where does church come from? And it actually comes from the ecclesia, which was the gathering. It came to take on a religious meaning, and the church word comes from the German, English language words. But I was like, but technically it didn't start out with this religious meaning, and it took that on.
Right.
So I made a little piece of that, and I also knew that when I came, there were certain things I would have to like do, and there would be certain things that I would have to adapt to. But one of the things from a marginalized community is like, so is anybody going to do any adapting too? Or are you just asking me to be more and more and more like you in every part of my being and my cultures and start giving them all up and give doing things luckily I think we have progressed to the point where we're saying we're not asking only certain people to adapt. We're asking everyone to transform.
I appreciate that. I think
I struggled with the language. I mean, and it was just sort of like,
I mean, I still hear from honestly more Jewish folks than Muslim folks about the problematic nature of the word church, and I hear that. I get, it's interesting because when the topic of the show came up, and I think it's important to have the conversation. So part of me is like, this is a jiggle pet. We don't have to call it. It could still be a jiggle pet.
You want it to be a jiggle pet?
It's a jiggle pet.
Maybe your jiggle pet looks like a pig.
It looks exactly. So this way, people don't have to freak out. You don't have to give up what you already have. This is one representation of a jiggle pet. So I appreciate, and I do agree about not having love at the center. So I love that part.
I do too.
Yeah.
And somebody in the chat asked the question of, so, can we have recommendations for what to do for congregations in which they have introduced this as a mascot to their congregations, where it's now well beloved and part of church and all of that kind of thing. And I think that that's a great entry. Like, I don't think that Jetpig is here to stay in the same way that there have been many versions of the ways in which to remember the 7 principles were in religious education. It really varied. It varied according to where you were in the US or Canada, whether you did, the rainbow chalice, or you did do re mi, or you did like something else. So I've never thought of Jetpig as like the thing that was going to be with us until the next Article 2. I thought of it as the thing to engage us into what is our next understanding of ourselves as Unitarian Universalists, in particularly in religious education. And so I love the idea that this can be one iteration of what I'm gonna get it. Jiggle pet. Jiggle. I gotta think jiggle. Jiggle pet could be jiggle. Yes. And so now we're gonna all be out there. Okay. Anyways, that's the side. And so I love that it's one part of that mosaic of how we enter in, because it's really about the values, right? Like it's about how do we make this shift. And I consulted congregations, and I was just at a congregation who said they still get to decide whether they do the 7 principles or the new values. And I was like, oh, Lord, dear Lord God, help us all now. And so, to me, it's about how do we engage into understanding ourselves in a different way. And so I love that.
Absolutely. I mean, that was part of the whole work of the revamp of Article 2. It didn't change Unitarian Universalism at its heart. It changed how we articulated Unitarian Universalism.
Right. Exactly.
And that was the point. It's like, I'm not throwing out Unitarian Universalism. I'm just, we're just giving us a new articulation that maybe works a little bit better in this age than the 7 principles, who were incredibly valuable when they were created, and in 20, 25 years less, there could be a new articulation of Unitarian Universalism. I hope we don't wait 40 years.
Right.
Right.
I mean, 2025, that's good enough. And I'll tell you that probably personally that the pig really struck me harder than it did other people but this was my work.
Yes. Yes. For sure. I can imagine.
Yeah.
This was my blood, sweat, and tears. And then you take it and I guess then somebody takes this work that I was so proud of, and I am still very proud of, big or not. But then to put this on it was just sort of like, I mean, and you know what? I think I also felt like you didn't even come to us and ask us what we thought. No one asked the commission, what do you think of this?
And I think honestly, I think that's a beautiful thing. I don't think that the commission ever set itself up to be the end all be all on the values. And that's a hard part of the work that you all did, is to take something that is so precious and hard earned. Let's be real, like the social capital that you all put on the line and spent in this work. Let's be real.
I got no political capital left.
It's hard. It's hard to see that go out into the world and have people do what they will about it. Aisha and I, and Kenny birthed a white supremacy teaching that we had to, let it go out there into the world and be what it's going to be. And it was not years in the making. And I can only imagine what that feels like. I will say, Cheryl, look at my chalice with love at the center. Love now lights my chalice.
So I also want to name, just because we lots of people interact with The View as a podcast, and so it's important to say things out loud, that we have a robust online conversation happening on our YouTube and Facebook channels. So, for example, Leilani has said we can change and adapt, like we changed from stand with love to side with love. When we know more, we can do better. And Leilani has some great ideas about how to introduce Jiggle Pet into religious education programs, which is awesome. Look in our YouTube channel for Leilani's ideas. I'm wondering if maybe we can talk a little bit about some of the other visuals and metaphors and ways in which people are learning about the new or the newly stated core values of Unitarian Universalism. Because I think some of them are fascinating and some of them are problematic and some of them have raised people's hackles and some of them make people's hearts sing, and sometimes they're the same things. right?
Yeah.
So
There's a new graphic that looks like the atom
uh-huh.
with the values there that has kind of lit up some of the Facebook spaces. I think it's gorgeous, but people have feelings.
I think it's gorgeous too as a scientist, and like
Yes.
all the boomers who survived hiding under their desks in nuclear bomb drills are like having flashbacks.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So there's that. Religious educator Beryl Aschenberg has introduced the mnemonic justice. Justice insists everybody gets to play.
Right.
Justice insists everybody gets to play, which actually says something about what our values are leading us towards. But it's also 6, right? And I think we need the definitive word out there that there needs to be an L. Because people are looking around the outside of the flower.
I know.
And,
right.
That's a good point.
So I love justice insists everybody gets to play, and it needs an L.
And it needs an L. But why is Cheryl, to your point, why is everyone
So can it be love and justice?
Because we're not a feelings. It's hard, we're God's frozen people. And I wonder if it's still part of the remnants of this stoic New England, lack of the, I know I'm generalizing, but that the love and all that entails keeps getting left out. And love people.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things, so the very first thing, when we had drawn pictures, and we wanted a picture to show the interconnectedness of it all. Like we just drew an oval and we put them all there, and there was nothing in the center. And love was just one of the other little circles. But we thought, we think love is at our core. It's the number one value that we name. So let's just put it at our core. And we were thinking maybe we have spokes and yada yada yada. But we were tired, and we come to a picture. We're like, hey, and then the flower that we got was not ours. It was Tanya Webster's flower, and which we really appreciated. That just.
And I think Tanya Webster also drew the atom. So
and I love that you can be drawing different things. What we insisted was that there was a representation that they are all interconnected, and that you can't, like, everybody remembers 1, 4, and 7 of the principles. Let's be real. Ask people, what's the 5th principle or the 6th principle, and ask people can't tell you. Ministers can't tell you. Let's be real. After we pass the MSU, don't need to remember all 7 of those anymore. That's true, please, Michael.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So we wanted to make them short, and love we named first as our, and we say it's our core value. But we didn't put it in the same format of value covenant, because we're saying love is informing. This is the value that informs all of our other values, and that it is at our core. So I think that confused people as well. I could see where people think there's only 6, but there's 7. And even if you think there's only 6, you got to put love here at the center. I mean, love has to be somewhere. So it is 7. For now.
Well, that'll keep the 7 principles people maybe a little bit less grumpy.
Oh, please.
They got mad when they got mad, like, don't change the number.
Of course, was top of mind.
That was
right,
a smoke screen. That was most definitely a smoke screen.
Oh, I know.
Don't change, know. And you know what? We understood, because when we were finished, we were like, oh my God, what have we done? We have really, really taken this and reshaped it. It's like we took the Play-Doh, and we just came up with something that looks very, very different.
Yeah.
And we were like stunned. Because, you know, as you're working through it, you're just looking at a piece, and then you try to put it all together, and you step back and you go, oh.
I love that metaphor, Cheryl, of reshaping the clay, because it's the same clay.
It's the same clay.
Yes. Yes.
And if we ask people what their jiggle pet looks like, it's all made of the same jiggle, right?
So Cheryl, since we have you on, I want to go to an easier topic. I would like to know your thoughts on how to talk about Gaza, because that's super easy and clear. So, you know, Jiggle Pet was complicated.
And Gaza's easy.
I mean, an easy one. Because I think it has been deep, again, not only disappointing about our denomination's response that the UUA just posted an apology and a recognition that a statement they made a few weeks ago was deeply harmful. And all the reasons why, and heard feedback. I definitely sent feedback and appreciate the recognition. But Loretta, my professional organization, and former president, Loretta led the white supremacy teach-in, led it. Like the three of us, Kenny, Chris, and I would not have gotten as far without the many members of Loretta, and when it comes to Gaza and Palestine and the genocide, almost nothing. If I don't post on the Loretta post, I'll talk about, because as soon as someone says my feelings are hurt, it shuts up. And we don't let white people get away with that. We do not let white people say, I don't want to talk about race. We don't let it happen. So why is a rhetorical question. I'm naming my deep disappointment in faith leadership. And let's take a lesson from Ta-Nehisi Coates. But I would like to hear your thoughts, Cheryl, really.
So, you know, the whole Middle East is very complicated. Okay, fine. It's complicated. The political part of the Middle East is complicated. Politics is always complicated. What is not complicated is you cannot indiscriminately bomb entire cities to rubble, not giving. Okay, I'm not going to use an Asia thing.
But you know you can.
That you don't give a flying fuck how many civilians. If you only have a hammer, everything starts to look like a nail.
And
that's
so,
right.
that was Hamas. That 4-year-old is not Hamas. Don't tell me that. Don't tell me that because you've lost lives, it's okay to take as many other lives. I don't want to.
That's right.
I condemned what happened on October 7th. Taking those lives, those hostages, was inexcusable. But the response has been it is beyond the pale. It is beyond the pale. All right.
Yeah.
You take out one house, or maybe two houses, and say, you know, I thought Hamas leaders were there, and then call it a day. You know what? We're gonna. Y'all need to work. But what is happening now is beyond. It is the callousness of the Israeli government, and I won't say out there protesting their government, probably even more than we're protesting their government. There's no conversation. There's no debate,
Right.
to me, that what has happened to Gaza is unconscionable.
Right.
It is one of the reasons we did not want reason as a value.
Ah, wow. Thank you for that.
Because Netanyahu is reasoning the unconscionable.
Or trying to.
But he is saying I am using my reason to be this is reasonable, but it is unconscionable.
Well, so is our government, because we're paying for it. We're funding all of this.
Exactly, and I really wouldn't want to be president right now. I'm not going to go into politics right now. I'm just not going to go. I'm not going to talk about the election. Just not. That's not my name. I'm here to talk about jiggle pets.
Jiggle pets.
But I think that the world needs to condemn the actions of the Israeli government and what it is doing in Gaza and what it will start doing in Lebanon.
And we need to condemn it. Faith leaders need to condemn it much more forcefully than we have been. Especially Unitarian Universalists.
It's almost as if we sometimes think, if I condemn that, then I'm condoning this other thing. No. It's not black and white. It is not. There are some things that just need to be condemned.
Yeah, and I think that's the real faith development part is, how can we condemn what Israel is doing and not be anti-Semitic, right? Like those are two different things, and that faith formation, that education piece is, for me, what is we can't. It's like we can't even get there. We can't even get to that conversation.
Well, and I think it's important to state that the contention that the unconscionable inhumanity of the Israeli government is rooted in their Judaism is anti-Semitic.
That is anti-Semitic.
Right. So like that contention is anti-Semitic on its face.
Right.
And to me, the worst scenario is not that they don't give a flying fuck who they're killing. It's that they do.
Yes.
And they're doing it on purpose. And I think that the world needs to grapple with that. Because if they didn't give a flying fuck, they'd have stopped by now.
Yes. Oh my God. Write that down. If they didn't give a flying fuck, they would have stopped right now. This is an active genocide, again, that we are funding. And somehow, as Unitarian Universalists, we still are trepidatious about saying this is wrong. On the period, full stop. My biggest disappointment. It's hard. I mean, as angry as you and disappointed as you were about Jetpig, I am that way about my people, my faith leaders, Loretta, just kind of throwing their hands up and going.
And I think it goes back to the fact that there are some hard conversations we have never been having. We have never had real conversations about Islamophobia within Unitarian Universalism. We have never had a hard conversation about anti-Semitism within Unitarian Universalism, and that's real.
Mm-hmm.
That is real. We don't want to talk about Theodore Parker's rampant anti-Semitism. So there are conversations hard conversations that we have never had. And so when it comes time for something like this, we don't have the language because we've never had the real conversations that needed to be had well before this day. And so now we're just walking around like, well, I don't want to say anything because if I say something, somebody will be mad at me. Oh, well.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, well, somebody may be mad at you. That's right. But maybe they're being mad at you. Opens up a dialogue that needed to be had.
I want to say one, Ta-Nehisi Coates, I really recommend every interview is done, especially the one with Trevor Noah. It's a podcast, show. Your oppression will not save you. And what he was talking about is just because there is a legacy of generational trauma, and but he said, I'm talking to my people too, doesn't give you more to designate a whole nother group of people. It doesn't. And
I think that is something. When I heard him say that, I saw him on the Daily Stuff, and I was like, oh my God! I wrote it down.
Yeah.
All of us need to remember that.
That's right.
Your oppression will not save you. It will not excuse you. It will not save you. And yet we do it all the time, don't we? And I'm not just talking about this one situation. Oh, I am racist. I'm gay.
Yeah, we do it all the time. That's right.
Yeah. What about my oppression? We do it all the time. I can't be homophobic. I can't. Both sides of that fence, and we keep thinking our oppression saves us, and it doesn't. I love that line. I love that line.
Well, it invites us into, and this is where Unitarian Universalism, what a blessing to be in this space, to be a faith leader. All 5 of us are faith leaders. Container to have these deeply painful and potentially so conversations. Like, what does that mean to say, yes, I have been oppressed in this way. I've been harmed and causing harm. So how do we bring healing and repair, both when we are healing ourselves and that is such a core. Reverend Ta-Nehisi, I know he's not a minister, and in fact, he's an atheist. He's very, open about that. And he is doing the most deeply sacred work that I've seen, most sacred work I've experienced in a very, very long time, and grappling with what does it mean for our humanity. And I'm grateful. And I'm grateful. Thank you for this conversation. I think it's been incredibly rich. We have a couple minutes left. Is there something left unsaid about Jiggle Pet? Jiggle, 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 jiggle. Jiggle Pet. Jiggle Pet.
So if you're listening to the podcast, we're all jiggling here.
We're literally.
You can't see that on the podcast. So
right.
That's our visual description of 5 faith leaders jiggling.
Exactly.
Well, thank you so much, Cheryl. Thank you,
Cheryl.
everybody. Go ahead, DC.
Cheryl, I just want to thank you for your willingness to share that vulnerable stuff with us, because that takes its own courage, and that's real, and that's a beautiful thing to model, and now I've got to go about renaming all my stuff to Jiggle Pet or something, but we can do it. We can do it. And I deeply appreciate. It's not easy to, and God knows you've had to do it more than a lot of people. More than that's just, you've had more than your fair share of that work to do. And so I just want to publicly say thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome. It is. I love this faith. I love what it is. I love what it is.
Yes.
I don't know what it is. not.
shows, Cheryl. It shows.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
I love the fact that it can evolve
Yes.
and embraces that fact, even though it didn't want to use that word. Um, one of our first values was E for evolution, which we thought was a nice nod to the scientists as well as everything. Oh, no, everybody hated it. So it became T for transformation. Everybody loved that. So we changed. But that we embrace transformation as a value.
We adapt to a
Yes.
changing world, Cheryl.
Where do I read that?
Yes.
That's a good idea. You ought to write that on a
That's
like a postcard or something, or a
You
bumper
notice I'm starting to memorize more than just the words. So
Yeah, and by the way, there is no order to them. You can put them in any order that you want. There is no first value.
Oh my God, that's gonna.
As were the 7 principles.
I know they didn't have any numbers on them either.
Nobody
That's
ever.
true. Well, before we start a whole nother show, I'm going to wrap this one up. And Reverend Cheryl M. Walker, thank you so much. Thank you, everybody, everyone.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me on. And
Love you, Cheryl.
Love
Thank
you
you
all.
We're going out of here. Bye.
Thank you for joining us. Special thanks to those of you who give generously to this ministry. It is because of you that this ministry is possible. You can click the link in the description to give now, or visit clfuu.org/give for more information. We hope
You
you
mean
will
we
join
can't
us
say
next
what we
week
wanna
for
say?
another episode of The View.